a while, and that's why we're not surprised she's a commissioner there now. There, Ms. Camilo learned what is like to be an attorney and what was like to serve real clients, and she gained a love for the courtroom. So in 2016, she ventured and started Camilo Law Firm, PC, in the Bronx, and she focused her practice on family and matrimonial matters and the 18B family, which is, you know, part of the public system where they hire 18B attorneys. So she was on that, which is very difficult to accomplish. Congratulations to her. Throughout her career, she has taken great care to make time to always give back, and I can definitely attest to that. As an advocate for the Dominican community, Commissioner Camilo has been an active board member of the DBA, the Dominican Bar Association, and she rose to be president of the organization back in 2018. So don't be deceived by the fact that she looks young. She's young, but she's accomplished a lot at a very short time, in a very short time. She was a member of the Bronx Connect family, where she monitored at-risk youth, and currently she volunteers as judge for the 7th and 8th grade Third Good Marshal mock trial competition, which is held every year at the Bronx County Supreme Court. Last year, she coached the 7th grade St. Simon stock team. So most recently, in February 2019, that's when she was elected to be commissioner in the Bronx. And now, this year, there has been a lot of additions to that law, which she has been a big part of during COVID-19. And without further ado, I want to turn it to our outstanding lecturer today. And again, thanking her for joining us. And we hope she comes back soon to teach here at ASA.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sunny. I'm so happy to be here because ASA community has a soft spot for me in my heart. I was able to teach throughout the beginning of COVID, and I really enjoyed doing that, and hopefully I will be back soon. I am an attorney, so I do have that luxury that as a solo practitioner, I could do multiple things. I could teach. I have my practice that focuses on family matters. That's when we deal with custody, child support, divorces. And then I also am a commissioner for Bronx County. And what that means is there's 10 commissioners in the city of New York. Each county has 2. I'm the Democratic representative for Bronx County, and we have a Democratic and Republican commissioner for each county in the city. And we are tasked with overseeing every single election event and making sure that everything from how your ballot looks to where you go vote, to how you get information about voting is really on us to make sure that we do it in a way that voting is an easy process, that everyone that is eligible to vote actually has the right to do so, and that we get your results also returned to the public as soon as possible and as accurately as possible. So it really has been one of my favorite things that I've been able to do in my career. And I really enjoy always taking the time to explain, especially to our students, the different processes that are happening. And as was mentioned in my bio, the last line is that I came in at a time where there were a lot of changes. One of the first changes was early voting, where now in the city of New York, you get to vote 9 days before general election day. And now with ranked choice voting is the most recent change that came in 2021. And that's the process that I'm going to explain to all of you today. I'm very happy to explain this and provide you with knowledge, because knowledge is power. That's why you're all here pursuing your education and planning for a better future for yourselves and your families. So I commend all of you. Students work always very hard, and taking time to join in these lectures, it hopefully will inspire you to keep studying and keep doing well and keep representing ASA in the best way you can. So I'm hoping you all see the PowerPoint presentation that should be on your screen. The first slide that we're on is titled Who Uses RCV? RCV is ranked choice voting. I do want to mention these materials are provided by New York City Campaign Finance Board. They are a separate group than the Board of Elections, but we work together. And the New York City Campaign Finance Board deals with a lot of the finances and the money that candidates have to raise in order to run for office. And they were also tasked with explaining how ranked choice works. So they did a series of lectures and created these slides, which I've been using to explain. So the first question always is, who actually uses this system? Because this is a system that came to New York based on the fact that other states use it and it has been found to be beneficial. You see there that there's other states like Maine and Alaska that use the system. There's separate cities within the US, like San Francisco, which is a very large city. They use ranked choice voting. And then the last example is the Academy Awards. So we have many award ceremonies where the ultimate winner is chosen by a system like ranked choice voting. So that's really where it comes from. Now, for its arrival here in New York City, it was effective by law January 1st, 2021. And the key to understand is that this was a way that was going to change how your ballot looked. Typically, when you go vote, you vote for one person, and you know that that's the person that you hope will win the office that you're selecting. But we do have something called a special election. That's when someone leaves an office and it wasn't planned, and now we have to fill it. Or a primary election, which we just had this past June 2021. In a primary election, there may be certain offices that are open, but we have many candidates trying to get in the same line. We may have 5 or 6 people that are Democrats that want to run for that city council position, or even that position of there's certain positions that are subject to ranked choice voting, right? It's right there in front of me, the mayor. So that being the biggest office that was really in the news and that a lot of New Yorkers were aware of, we were choosing our Democratic candidate for mayor. And there were many, many people running for mayor. So ranked choice voting was going to come into the ballot for that primary election, where we were ultimately going to be able to rank them by choice. Ranked choice voting is important to understand, only affects those certain offices: mayor, public advocate, comptroller, borough president, and city council. City council are our local officials. They are making local laws for the city of New York. And almost all of city council was coming up upon their term. So our current city council members, their terms were expired. So we were getting a whole batch of new people that were running for all those open seats. A long way of saying this was going to be a very important election, this primary that just passed in June of 2021, because it's the new system of ranked choice voting, and we had so many offices that were open and so many people that were running. This ranked choice voting system only applies to special and primary elections. We do not use this system for the general election. It's important to understand that by the time we get to the general election, which is coming up now in November of 2021, we already have selected our candidate for each office, for each party line. So when you get to the general election and you look at a ballot, you are only going to choose one person, which is the normal system that most of us are accustomed to. So important to understand that what I'm speaking about is for the benefit of you to have this knowledge, but it's only something you will see in a special election or a primary election. Okay? So that is how ranked choice voting was going to impact, or has impacted now, the city of New York. Highlighting with our own slides, because we, the Board of Elections, were trying to do above and beyond our duty, remember, we implement elections, we follow the law, and if you tell us this is how something is going to change, we usually just, do the process so that it's actually implemented. But we wanted to take the time to also educate the public. So we came up with a number of media campaigns that you would have seen in the subway, in the news, and in social media. Surprisingly, Twitter has been a big way for us to communicate with the public. So we were using slides that were trying to demonstrate what I'm talking about and just highlighting the main points that the public needed to be aware of. So to repeat and looking at it in color in our slide, this ranked choice system is only for the primary or the special election, and it only applies to these offices: mayor, public advocate, comptroller, borough president, and city council. The ballot, that is the biggest thing that this was going to change, right? And the biggest impact for the common day voter, right? Me as a voter going into the poll site, what was I going to expect? I was going to expect a different ballot, a ballot that had a lot more information on it and required for me as a voter to be extra careful of how I was placing my votes. So this is a mock-up example that our office came up with, simplified way of showing you what really RCV is, ranked choice voting is. On the left, we have all the people that want to run for that specific office. We may have 2 people, we may have 7 people. All those names will be listed on the left. And let's say this is the office of mayor, which was the biggest office that we really were looking at for this last primary. The names are all listed on the left side column. And then on the right, you're going to see 5 columns. And listed up top, you were going to see the preference, the number of preference. So what was your first choice, second, third, fourth, or fifth? Voters were now being given the ability to say, you don't just have to vote for one, you're going to vote for 5, your top 5 choices. Your first choice being probably the person that you wanted to win, and that if you only had 1 vote, you were going to vote for that person. That's your first choice. The second, third, fourth, and fifth in order of preference, right? So who did you like second best, third best, fourth best? That's what the ballot was going to allow you to do. For each office, pick up to 5. And it really was something that the public had to take time to understand, because you could just say, I just want my first choice. And you could just say, I want to vote just for 3. But the option was to vote for up to 5. So this is what the law required, for this to be the opportunity for each voter to select 5 candidates for each of these offices. Filling out the ballot was something that was most important to our office. When you go vote and you're filling out these circles on this ballot, which is a long piece of paper, we give you instructions. Fill it out completely. Don't strike out anywhere else. Don't pick, more than one correct category, because this is being scanned into a machine, and we want to make sure that the machine can read the ballot. With ranked choice voting, I just explained, you had 5 choices, 5 separate columns. So your ballot was going to end up looking something like this, where you carefully had to select the first choice in that first choice column, your second choice in that second choice column. You see how it had to line up according to your vote of preference? That is something that a voter really needed to understand and be able to take their time and be able to follow through the ballot, right? That you see here, the top candidate is the purple candidate. They're actually this voter's 4th choice. So the voter had to be careful to follow the name down to the 4th choice column and fill in that circle. And you see that each column is given only 1 selection. You could only vote for that candidate once. your candidate that was your first choice couldn't be your second and third. They could only be your first. All of these intricacies were things that needed to be understood so you correctly fill out your ballot, so then the machine can read the ballot. Okay. And then the work of figuring out who would be the final candidate for a certain office, that's the whole point of ranked choice voting. We are allowing voters to pick up to 5 candidates because what we want to be able to do, we the Board of Elections, is count the votes by round so that ultimately we get a winner that won by 50% or more of the vote. So taking a step back, if, for example, we had those 7 people running and the voters could only pick one choice, it's very possible, because there's 7 people running, that 2 people could have gotten 20% of the vote, right? 2 or 3 people could have gotten maybe just 5%, 10%. It would have split, right, the population up. So it would have been very difficult with that one vote to get that 50% mark you needed. And what would normally happen if you only selected that one person, that one vote, and you ended up with results where everybody got about 20%, the law required us to have a runoff election. That means we, the Board of Elections, have to say, there's no winner here. We have to do a whole other election. We don't have enough votes to figure out who's that winner, because a winner typically has to get at least that 50% mark. That means millions of dollars more to put on a whole other election. And what the legislator and the city council, really, who passed the law for ranked choice voting, what they were considering, they were saying, let's save that money. Let's implement ranked choice voting so that we have enough votes to conduct rounds and we don't have to do a runoff election. So ranked choice voting puts in the system where we're going to require that you have to get 50% to win. And with all these votes, remember all these votes that we have, where we're allowing a voter to pick up to 5, we're going to use all the possible votes and count by round. So you need 50%, and this is what we're going to do. You line up the candidates and you see how many votes were given for the first choice. So every candidate is outlined in a different color. You see we have 5 candidates there. Nobody made it to 50% on the first round, right, of counting votes. This is just who the voters selected as their first choice. But because we have ranked choice voting, now we can go and count the second choices to see if we get to that 50%. So what happens as we go through the rounds? The bottom candidate, the candidate that received the least amount of votes, they get eliminated. That candidate that got the least amount of first choice votes, those ballots had choices for second choice, third choice, and all of that. So we're going to use those votes from those eliminated ballots, and we're going to add them to the candidates that are still in the race. We're going to add them above. So you see there, the gray boxes we're eliminating, but whatever choices they had for second, third, fourth, and fifth, we're going to add them to the top until we get to 50%. And don't worry, we didn't have to do this. You didn't have to do this. We had a computer system that was doing all these rounds, but I'm just detailing it for you, basic of how it was being done. Okay. This is the material from New York City Campaign Finance Board, how they were demonstrating, similar to our slides, what we were doing. We need to get to 50%. In an ideal world, here in their example, they have 4 candidates, and when people went to vote and pick their first choice, someone got 54%. So if that happened, we didn't need to do the rounds. We didn't need to worry about the ranked choice voting system. Candidate B won, right? Because they got more than 50%. So that's illustrating the point of where we're working off of. If someone did get 50% or more, and we didn't have to do the round system. But in this past election for the primary, we did do ranked choice voting in every single district, every single election, because there were so many candidates and no one was getting that 50% on that first try. They're explaining here, New York City Campaign Finance Board, how we will eliminate that candidate with the fewest votes. And then their second through fifth choices were going to be added to the candidates that were still in the race until we got to that 50%. So you see the arrows there of moving the extra votes up to the candidates that remained. As we eliminated that last candidate, we used the rest of their votes for the candidates up top because everyone is looking for that 50% or more. Illustrated there as well with the different colors. This was all information that, we were trying to simplify because we had a short amount of time to educate as many people as possible. And with such a change, that would affect the way voters would go to and vote on their ballot, it was very important that they had as much information as possible. Remember, the primary was taking place still during COVID with social distance restrictions. You don't really want to leave your house if you don't have to, right? We have at least the benefit of early voting, so we have those extra 9 days where you're hoping that you're going to go to a poll site and there's not going to be a line, no one's going to be there. But then on top of that, we're contending with this different type of ballot, which is setting up a whole new system of how voters were selecting their candidates. And I always said, frankly, when I went to vote and I know about the system and I teach about the system, it took me 10 minutes to go through my ballot, to read, to follow the line, then the column. So it was really, something new that New York City had to look at. And like everything else, the first time around, we were going to have our bumps in the road. It was going to be a learning curve. But I expect for the next time when ranked choice voting, if ranked choice voting occurs for a next election, a special or a primary, we're going to be, in a better place because we've already had this experience of going through it. Okay. It was important to highlight, we're teaching so much stuff. I just threw a lot of information out there of how this system works. And sometimes it was simpler to highlight what not to do. For me, really, that was the most important thing because I understand that this is a lot to take on when you're going to vote on this ballot with so many names and this whole new system. So what I really always highlighted was this. This is the mistake that you did not want to make. You could not vote for one candidate for all your choices. Remember, I said the machines that have to read these ballots and you have to then make sure that your ballot is filled out correctly. This was the biggest error that I wanted to avoid. I wanted people to understand that even if you love candidate B is your choice. If you did this, if you selected them for every single choice, you weren't going to get the full benefit of them getting 5 votes. They only got 1, right? So what this really did was hinder your opportunity to use your full vote, right? You choose candidate B all 5 times and candidate B, let's say, gets eliminated on that first round, then your ballot is exhausted. It's thrown out. Your ballot is no longer in use for us. You could have then taken the opportunity, had you not done this, to select other candidates, and then your ballot was still being used, right? Those votes were still going to work for other candidates and for those others that were trying to achieve the 50%. So this was very important to highlight, that you couldn't make this error of selecting one person for every single choice. And we kept promoting the phrase, more choices, more power, because really voting is a power. These are elected officials that you're selecting that are local to us, New York City. These officials are creating those laws that are going to help us with all these issues that we have, especially during COVID, right? Ability of jobs, housing, street repairs, all those things are done by these people on the ballot. I think I'm on my last slide. Yes. So yeah, so just to conclude, this was a glimpse of a system that is now here in the city of New York. It's going to be used for our special and our primary elections. I always recommended people to try to even visit our website, vote.nyc. You see this information on our website. You can see a sample ballot. And because we are still in the time of, being restricted of where we go when we leave our houses, I always wanted people to have that information from home and take time to digest it and understand it before you go vote. And General Election Day is coming up November 2nd. It's a Tuesday, always the first Tuesday of November. So please make sure you're registered to vote. Please go out and vote. Your vote is very important. If you have any questions of whether you're registered to vote, vote.nyc will tell you. So I hope you enjoyed my remarks and that you learned something about ranked choice voting. Are you all still there?
Thank you, Professor. That was an excellent presentation and a definitely learning experience for me. There's some things that I had not clear, but I'm going to let Dennis manage some of the questions. Thank you so much. This was really informative.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions relating to the presentation? Any students, any faculty, or comments? Did the city feel like it went well this time? So Professor Periconi wants to know if the city felt that, I guess the first time they implemented choice ranking, did it go well?
We did feel like when the voters got to the poll sites, they were able to handle the ballot. So that was a positive. We definitely always are looking for improvement and we take feedback from voters and our elected officials. And the main issue was always that we didn't give more information. So we're expecting to do more of that, as we continue with ranked choice voting.
To be honest with you, I felt it was a little confusing and that there wasn't enough information in terms of how the process would work for the first time. You showed that you guys had some, campaigns to really educate the public. So what is that attributed to? Do you feel like maybe there has to be more of in person, and did COVID affect the fact that some people did not get the information in time?
Yeah, I think the limits imposed by COVID, the fact that we can't do in-person, showings, that even going to a person's house and maybe showing them a ballot or sending out mail, our mail system is a bit difficult sometimes. Definitely the impact of the pandemic brought us those results, right? It affected the ability that we had. And even when we speak of social media and our website, I'm assuming there's, access to computers and internet, something that not everybody has that type of access. We have different sectors of the community that are limited. So that's always a huge concern. We do still do newspaper ads, bus ads, and train ads because of that, because we want people to have at some point seen, or even heard about ranked choice voting before they go vote.
Oh, Professor Moreno says, does ranked voting favor any political party?
It doesn't. It's not meant to favor any specific party or candidate. It actually gives more opportunity for more people to run. And that's what we saw with this ranked choice implementation. We had more candidates than ever actually run for office.
True. Okay. We have Candy. She's asking, how long does it take for you to decide on who won the election?
So if you were following this last primary, that was a huge question. The biggest question is, when will we know who won? And typically on election night, that's the night that we close polls at 9. By 9:30, 10 p.m., we have usually what we call unofficial result, where we declare unofficially who's winning in whatever office they're running in. And people like that. People want to know right away. We're a culture of, instant gratification. But with this ranked choice system and what I explained about rounds, and even though we had a computer algorithm doing the rounds, it took a few weeks to understand who actually won the election and then actually declare the official winner. We don't expect that issue for the general election, because the general, we're only picking one candidate as your choice. So general election day, we should know who our mayor is, who our public advocate is that night.
But what about absentee ballots, and how do you, that's why it's unofficial. How long does that take? Because I noticed that it took a while to kind of get back to the general public in terms of who does that. How does that work, the absentee ballots?
That's a great other piece of it that I didn't mention. It was also impacted by COVID. So what happens with the absentee ballot is you have a right to declare yourself an absentee voter for a specific reason. So you could write to us and say, I have a specific issue. I can't vote in person. I always want my ballot sent to us. When the pandemic hit the city, our governor said, we're going to expand this. We're going to allow people to vote by mail, vote by absentee ballot, simply for the reason that they don't want to get into contact with anyone or be exposed to COVID-19. So that expanded the right to an absentee ballot. We mailed you your ballots, and then we had to wait. We gave you an opportunity to even fix the ballot. If there was something wrong with the envelope that it came in, we gave you an opportunity to fix it. The fix usually being that you just had to sign the envelope to make sure that that was you who voted. But to Ms. Tavares' question, what happens is election day is on one day. We have to wait 7 days after for the absentee ballots to come in. So there's a law that requires us, you must wait those 7 days. So we don't start counting our absentee ballots until those dates, 7 days pass. Then the count of the absentee ballot may take a few more days. So that plays into when can we declare those official results, because we do have to count all those absentee ballots.
Oh my God, yes. I see someone says here, I found this amazing this time. This was Randy Arzu, my assistant. Helping my mom for the first time was very exciting because she thought it would be the same as before. One day, I expect to be on the line as an elected official. Very good presentation.
Wonderful.
And then I think there's some, but again, Christian, one of our professors and chairpersons, he said, might this encourage more people to run for office, the choice ranking?
I believe so. I think the idea of ranked choice made it seem like we weren't designating the big political parties' candidates as the automatic winner, right? That's some of the thought process that goes in when you have an election for city council and it's a Democratic election. The Democratic county may have their preferred candidate and they have resources, they have knowledge, so they most likely will win the election. But with ranked choice, it was no longer that secure. So we saw a lot of young candidates, a lot of African American and Hispanic candidates running. More than ever, I think we were definitely encouraged to run for office. And we see it even in our city council. We expect to be the most number of Latina city council members that historically that we've had. So it's a great thing. I don't think it's just about ranked choice. I think it's about the times we're living in. Elections is very popular. People are more in tune with what's happening in the country. And they're realizing how important it is to be mindful, right? Like be watchdogs. We have to protect the right to vote at all costs.
Isn't it, there's some criticism to the law. So you have some folks on the other side of the spectrum. Some of the criticism, they find the law to be unfair because they say, why is it that perhaps I might have chosen someone not as my first candidate, right? Or not. However, when you start adding up, right? So can you kind of clarify, because I'm not really sure how that works. And I know you have to come up with the 50%. Well, how does that get added up? Because some argue it's unfair that someone who didn't get that vote, the vote is attributed to them from a person who was like number 5. How does that work? How do you add those? Can you clarify that part for us?
Sure.
That's a huge criticism of the law.
Yeah. No, definitely. So the idea that, your vote, or are you being denied your right to select your candidate because no longer your first choice is going to be who you
Right.
expect to see as a winner. The counting of the votes is really the more intricate part about this ranked choice, because I kind of, in summary, I'm talking about rounds, and what I'm talking about is that those second and third choices that maybe you said, oh, okay, this is my second, this is my third.
I don't
Maybe
even
you
want
didn't.
them, but if I have
Right.
to, let me put it
You
there.
have to. But the law did designate that those votes were going to then be in play for selecting that winner. So I don't have an easy answer to that, but I will say what we did see in the campaigns. What ended up happening is people that were running, they were actually being more cordial than normal. So they were saying, vote for me as your first choice. But if you don't vote for me as first choice, then vote for this guy, second choice. And then that candidate was doing the same opposite. That candidate was saying, vote for me as your first choice, but if you don't like me, then vote for my friend. They were kind of helping each other out and trying to hedge their bet and saying, well, if I don't get the first vote, I can still count on that second vote. So I'm going to be nice to this guy, and maybe their votes can help me ultimately win.
So one would say that it would sort of reduce the way in which campaigns have been handled in the last 5 years. It was very contentious, and people going and really going into people's personal lives, which I think is a little low. So maybe what you're saying with respect to that, civility has been better and personal lives have been respected and more camaraderie amongst the candidates.
A
Would you
little bit
say
more.
that?
Yeah,
Good.
a
All
little
right.
bit more. You still see that.
Okay. Dennis, I think we've come to the end of this conference. I don't know if you want to close by saying anything else. I just want to truly thank Commissioner Camilo. I know how busy she is with her practice and being the commissioner and giving back to the community. Wishing you continued success. And I encourage all of our students to, if you're not a student here, we're on registration mode. Please, I sent my email and number, and we have a general number. You can reach any of us. And again, Professor Camilo, we look forward to having you back here at ASA, and we truly appreciate your time and continued success. Wishing you continued success. Thank you so much.
Thank you to the ASA family. Thank you for having me.